Hi, Zizaran here with another episode of Path of Exile University for the Expedition League 3.15. And this is going to be covering Leagues 102. We also have a Leagues 101 that covers like all the, well, very super basic stuff. This is going to be slightly more in-depth. So we're going to go over and discuss some common and effective ways of using old League mechanics. Some League mechanics are needed to unlock crafts, map device slots, bosses, and a lot of them have like unique loot that you can only get from that League mechanic. We are not going to cover how to fully optimize every single mechanic because there's not enough hours in the day. I do have some advanced videos on, for example, Betrayal. That's obviously very complicated. And I got a lot of good feedback from new players that they finally understood Betrayal after watching my video. So we're going to try to provide the basics and then you can research the rest. Obviously, like the league system, like if you're trying Path of Exile for the first time or getting into it, you have 8 years of catching up to do, right? So that's why it's probably going to be a slightly long video. But that's what we're going to cover in this. We're going to be also skipping the league mechanics is almost always a bad idea. It's generally very profitable. But there are some times where it's really profitable, but super anti-fun. For example, Heist is not very fun. But it is incredibly profitable. If you can stomach doing it, it's great. It's very powerful and very worth doing. So we're going to start with Bestiary. You start fighting a boss with a yellow or a red icon, and it's just like a slightly more powerful monster. Einar is going to capture it when it gets low HP, and that will allow you to use the beast on the blood altar. And each of these have their own, like, there are loads of like good ones, and like that spider will always give you that craft split with a half of the mods on each item. This is basically duping the item, but you can only do it once, and it won't keep like the full item. It'll have, let's say you split a 6-thing chest plate with 114 life, 37 fire res, and 37 lightning, then it's very likely that you'd have the life and 1 resist on one and just another resist on the other. However, both of the chests would keep the 6-thing, but you could not continue splitting this. You could only split it once and not multiple times. So very good for stuff like that. And there are so many of the crafts that can give you great outcomes. Sometimes, especially on solo self-fund, it's very useful to just use the unique ones too, like unique axe, unique amulet. Like sometimes there is something that you are looking to get. And you got to remember, if something is a boss drop, it cannot drop whatsoever. So if you're doing unique flask, you can never get a dying sun or a bottle of faith. If you're doing unique item, you can get everything that could naturally drop off the map. There are some weird exceptions. There is actually very little consistency in the rules here. Because you can get, I think it is Parandus items or Blight items. You can definitely get Blight items, and that is technically very zone specific. So there is some lack of consistency in the rules. But generally, if it drops directly from a boss, like Hand of Wisdom and Action, cannot drop. Other than that, there's another really good use as well. And let's see, we have more examples here coming up. But yeah, we can, here are some good examples of really good ones. So create an item, fully 6-thing socketed rare. There are several of these. Some are just that it gives you a specific rare, like a carnal armor, and that will always give you a carnal armor. There is the very common one, which is worded like this, fully 6-thing socketed rare. And that will just give you any 6-thing. It can be a bow, a staff, a weapon, or a chest. You can find these as early as Blood Aqueduct. Maybe Act 8 is the earliest I've gotten one. So very nice. Now, do remember you can't put an existing item in and 6-think that. It will give you a new one, a fully new item. The best and most useful thing for with Bestiary is fast crafting. It's very easy. You just use the yellow beasts, so like the filler ones. And they can craft like freeze immune, etc. There is another one, which is remove prefix, add suffix, or the other way around. This is the same as an annulment and an exalt. So it'll remove a suffix and add a prefix. This is really good in multiple ways. If you have an amulet with, for example, 20% life stats or a ring with like catalyst quality, the remove prefix, add suffix will not remove the catalyst quality. So it's a really good way to do that. And obviously getting an annulment and exalted are for free and it being targeted is very powerful. Sometimes you might have like, it might just be a sure thing that you just need to remove the suffix. And then Split, obviously, like I said, very, very good. It is not mirrored, and GGD actually said it's similar to mirrored. It is not. It does not have any similarities to mirrored, because you can't do anything to a mirrored item. Whereas mirrored doesn't have a downside except that you can't split it again. You can imprint it. They also said that you can't imprint it, but what they meant with that is that you can't imprint an item, split it, and then load it back. So it's like presented very, very badly to massive confusion of players, but split is very, very strong, and I use it very frequently. So, and you can even mirror a split item. So there is basically no downside. And it does not eat up an affix slot. The only thing is that you can't split it again. Imprint is really, really strong as well. It's basically, think of it as saving the item. Save and load game. So when you have a blue item, you can imprint it, and then say you regal it, exalt it, and you didn't hit what you wanted, or maybe even fully brick the item, well, then you can imprint it again. As long as you haven't valed it, you can imprint it and like go back to your save point. So this is really good in the case of when you have, for example, let's say Merciless and high attack speed. That would be like 179% fist damage and 25 attack speed. That would be very, very strong. And then you would imprint Regal until you hit Flaring, which is flat physical. There are some Bestiary bosses as well. Some of these are very, very good. So the Spider is very popular. It basically gives you an aura, giving you 15% more damage, and it slows your enemy. The Crab as well gives you 20% phys reduction for one hit, but it can be cheesed with things like high dodge builds or glancing blows, where it'll be even stronger. With glancing blows, it will not be removed, even though you're taking damage. And again, loads of the random unique crafts are really good. There's also a corruption craft. This is very good when you have finished your item and you want to get it to 30% quality without farming Betrayal. Obviously, we didn't used to have the 30% Betrayal craft, but now if you say you finished a weapon, you're never going to change anything on it, except you can still change the colors and links on the sockets on a corrupted item. So that's not a problem, but you don't want to craft on it anymore. Then you can 30% quality corrupt it. It's guaranteed. It will not have a 25% chance to destroy your item and break it. It will just corrupt it and give it 30% quality. You can also get corrupted 23 quality gem and a corrupted level 21 gem. So those can be pretty useful. Level 21 gem can be particularly useful to do early league if you find it. So you can sacrifice the gem if it's a shit one in harvest for the 50% experience. Put that into your main gem and you might get like a 12 to 24% damage boost. You can also add a mod to an influence item. This is also nice because you will not lose catalyst quality. It doesn't add influence. It is just an exalted orb that can be used with a specific influence. So it's not really that good. It's basically just to not do catalyst quality removal. And here are some examples of crafts, like the level 21 gem, the imprint, etc. And then we see like the different beasts. Feral can only spawn at level 80 plus maps. And Venomous can only spawn at 78 plus. The Crab is 75 plus, and I think Zakawal is 70 or 72 plus. And the last thing to note, if you have died on hardcore and you're coming back on a low level character and you're just wanting to do a small craft or something in Bestiary, make sure you check the level of the monsters. Because, well, I don't know about you, but I once had a level 40 character that wanted a quick flask craft and started fighting a level 83 beast and got one shot. So make sure that you're careful when checking the level of the beast. Next up, we're going to talk about Incursion. And Incursion recently got buffed, and now it is a really, really strong league. Building a temple is still a bit random, but you can still manipulate it by doing one incursion per zone to force the second one to be rerolled if it's not a wanted room. So the way this works, and a quick explanation of incursion. Let's say that you are chasing a corrupted chamber. This is very, very common. It's how you double corrupt items. And let's say that we open up a map and the first zone we find is a corruption chamber. That happens now and again. And if that is the case, just leave. You can finish the map, but don't click on the other incursions. because in one zone, you can never get the same room twice. So that means that if the first one is a corruption chamber, that means that the second and third is not going to be so. But if you open a new zone, then the second in that zone can be a corruption chamber. So you are like wasting an Alva mission, but you also will have a larger chance for that temple to get a corruption chamber. So just the simple rule is a chamber cannot appear in the same zone twice. It doesn't guarantee good spawns. It just like puts the odds slightly in your favor. It's mostly, I would only do this when chasing corruption chambers. The room layout is pretty much identical to the map you're shown before you enter the incursion, and you don't need to enter the incursion first. You just stare at the map and make a choice. Do it before you enter and decide which way you want to go. And there are so many good rewards in incursion now. So, if you see the architect in the bottom left, that will always change the room to another one. And there are some filler rooms, they're called like hallway and stuff like that. Then going top right or bottom left would always, either way, changes the room. If it is a room that already has a purpose, so for example, vault, corruption chamber, or the map room, then top right is the way you upgrade it. Some rooms can sell generalized instantly as an itemized temple. So for example, if you click on the button here, take Temple Chronicle, this will turn it into basically a map, and you can sell this to other players. So people will very often buy the Corruption Temple or the Gem Corruption. So both of those sell really well. It can be a good way to get money if you don't have an immediate use for it yourself. And high level temples can sell as well, like, and a level 83 temple with a map room in it would also sell. Something that's like very, very underrated, the strongbox chamber, especially in level 83 zones, can be really, really good. I would argue better than the map room, because you can very often get a or several 83 cartographer strongboxes. You can get a large amount of tier 16 maps. Temple level is calculated from the average level of incursions you run plus 10 levels up to the highest level you run. So for example, say I was running only level 75 zones, right? Then it's not going to spawn a level 83. But if I run one incursion in a level 83, and then 11 incursions in 75, then it will be 83, because the max would be 85, but we haven't run an 85, but we have run an 83, then you get an 83 temple. So generally, if you are, let's say you're solo self-fund, it's early league, and you're really trying to grow your map pool, then doing like an incursion into tier 10 or whatever the highest you have at the time, and then doing the rest in lower ones to try to save maps is a really, really good way to get a map pool. Because the temple can have like 2,000 to 3,000 monsters, and so many other rooms can give you maps. So it is really, really good for that. And let's say here we have a second example. We have one incursion in a level 77 zones, but then we go back and start doing Blood Aqueduct, and we do 11 incursions in the level 61 zone. This is, the average would be 62, and then plus 10, 72. So we would get a 72 temple. And there are some incursion rooms that you only get in maps. For example, Legion. So temple manipulation is extremely important with early map progression. So you don't necessarily have to do this more than like for like a week or something. But if you are struggling on solo self-fund with map returns or in a race, this is really, really good. And it's basically free, and obviously there's so many rewards now from Incursion. They've just made it a lot better. And the map drops, the state that magic monsters can drop +1 of maps. So tier 10 temple with a lot of magic monsters have a really chance to drop in tier 11s. Early in the league, they'll provide almost a free leg up on your map pool, usually providing enough high yellows and low reds to not run out when you're grinding for your watchstones. So very, very, very good. If you're ever struggling with the maps, Incursion is one of the ways to fix that. Let's talk about Betrayal. Betrayal is incredibly complicated. A lot of people don't like it, not because it's not rewarding, but because it is so complicated and it seems overwhelming to get into. I do have a very advanced video. I think it's like 20 minutes, 25 minutes, just covering Betrayal. We're going to go over it a little bit now, but this is the hardest thing in Path of Exile. And primary rewards are from the safe house benches and chests, and you also get unveils from items, which is like unlocking crafts. The benches are used to modify or upgrade items in ways that aren't normally possible, and the unveils themselves are now stronger on the item you unveil it on than what you can craft later, which is a really cool mechanic. Safe houses allow up to tier 3 rewards based on the rank of the master, and if you execute them, it'll give +1 if they aren't already a max rank. This also assumes that there is another member present, because if, let's say, Tora is the last member there, you cannot rank her up. Interrogating gives you intelligence towards the safe house, but will remove 1 rank from the person that you interrogate. You can have all masters on the board at maximum rank, but this requires some careful planning and some luck. And the relationship between masters allowed them to join fights for encounter they are not part of. So let's say that you have, let's say they have Ashleen at intervention, but you have Chimeria. Actually, let's say we have Rin at intervention, but you have Chimeria at transportation. Because of this red rivalry line, they can appear with each other regardless of where they are, because they are they're angry at each other and want to betray each other. Same with like the green lines, red lines. Having a mix of both doesn't matter. I think Betrayal is slightly better. I feel like that makes them show up more. And like a quick TLDR, I would generally, let's say I don't care about Rin or Haku, right? Neither of these are important to me, so then I don't really want a relationship between them. I want every good member, everything that I think has a good reward. So let's say, for example, Hillock. I want him to have a relationship with as many people as possible. But I never want 2 bad ones to have a relationship with each other. Having a good character, like maybe Vegan or It That Fled, having a relationship with a bad one is good as well. So as you can see, it's very, very complicated and a lot to take in. So some examples here. And It That Fled at level 3 will turn it into a pure Breachstone. Or Varichi at level 3 will modify an item to have 1 to 3 white sockets. And if you complete the Mastermind Katarina, that allows all current safe house rewards to be used immediately at 1 tier higher. So sometimes, for example, with Hillock, which would normally give 28% quality to an item, it will not corrupt it as well, so it's really good. Would now instead be 30. It That Fled, instead of 1 pure Breachstone, will be 2 pure Breachstones. They're very, very strong. And Ashleen at level 4 will let you add basically Exalt and Unveil to an item. This is incredibly strong, and it was insane power creep. I don't think they're going to touch it. I think they quite like the way it turned out, but incredibly strong. That's how most of the super strong items were crafted in the last league. Completing Katarina resets your Betrayal board. It also can kick some people out or allow new people in. It's really annoying. It also resets all the relationships. So if you've set up the board for a specific reward farming type, resetting your board might not be good. But I would say Katarina is super worth doing now. And rewards are based on the safe house per master, which were on board at the time you killed Katarina. Yeah, I don't think they're gonna nerf that. So, Intervention provides scarabs with pretty much every master, except for Guff, which provides a crafting bench on all levels. I think it's the Transportation Guff bench, especially at level 4. It's really, really nice, especially for cluster jewels. I think you get like a minute of chaos spamming. And for the scarabs, tier 1 is rusted, tier 4 is gilded, and can also drop winged. Research, here we have some other good ones. Ashleen with the Veiled Chaos Orbs, or tier 4 for the Veiled modifiers. Chimeria for Sextants. Hillock gives fast quality. It That Fled gives you Breachstone upgrades. Leo will let you exalt an item, and at tier 4 will exalt twice. Tora applies experience to a skill gem, and this is doubled by quality. And tier 4 on these is not always winged, has a chance for winged. But yeah, the Tora experience, if you do it to, for example, Empower or Enlighten and has 20 quality on it, that will get doubled, whereas the Harvest experience ones will not. Varichi at level 4 is 1 to 6 white sockets, which is great. Some other notable ones. On Fortification, Chimeria will give you Harbinger and Horizon Orbs. Hillock gives you armor quality past level 20, depending on the level. Haku gives you tier 4 for unique strongbox, and sometimes in a league, this can be a challenge to get like the portal or whatever. Corral gives you map fragments, and this can include like shaper ones, etc. Tora gives you enchanted items and can be helmets. I generally, it's okay on SSF, but I generally wouldn't do it. Transportation, time-worn unique. That means something that's like cross-league, like for example, Headhunter. Can't remember what the changes were on that since they made none of it cross-league anymore, but I'm guessing you can at least still get Headhunter and stuff there. Hillock, weapon quality past 20. Corel, essences, and that can be good if you're trying to farm Hysteria and Insanity, stuff like that. Leo, level 4, is itemized prophecies. This can be good if you're trying to get multi-mod recipe. Riker, level 4, take 1 currency item, and that can be basically anything. Exalted Orbs, etc. And Roichi will give you random quality gems. And again, unveils are so important now, and it's worth looking at an item, especially if you find a good ring or an amulet. Let's say it has 70 life, 1 resist, and an unveil suffix. This is incredibly strong because that could give you endurance charge on kill and a minimum endurance charge. So that is something you can't normally craft, that you have to unveil it. So the unveils are 1 tier higher than what you can craft later. So very, very strong. And they also don't count as a crafted mod anymore. So when you've finished unveiling it, it is just grafted onto the item. And that's why Ashland is so strong, because we can add 1 or 2 veiled modifiers on items that are already good. And for example, avoid elemental ailments goes up to 45%. I wouldn't be surprised if this gets nerfed, because they seem to be going hard on ailment immunities. I think it's going to be quite an investment to get literally ailment immune. Like, I could also see Inquisitor being nerfed. If not, I'm playing Inquisitor. Unveiling became quickly the best option for finishing a PC gear in 3.14, especially because Harvest Augments doesn't work with Influence gear and is so rare. Next up, we are going to talk about Delve. Delve is one of the best things they ever added to the game, and probably should be a standalone endgame as an alternative to maps, but it isn't. And here we have Delve, and we can talk a little bit about the picture. So here we see a city biome and a second city biome. This has a lich, and this has whatever this one is called. And these are 2 different bosses. There's a third one as well that you will never find, called Owl. I haven't found one in 6 months because the game hates me. And that is generally like further, I think it's from level 180 or 280. Architect, that's what that's called. Thank you. And there is loads and loads of rewards in Delve. It got buffed, especially at the early end. There will be some nodes that will have like a fire hand, or like it'll say contains fire items or cold items, and they will drop you like curse rings. So Delve is really, really worth doing now. These nodes can be pretty rewarding in terms of currency, map returns, etc. And obviously the bosses are worth doing. The Lich is probably the hardest one. I would say the Lich is harder than Owl. If you don't know about the purple laser, that can easily one-shot you. And I feel like Owl is pretty easy. Obviously, the bosses also depend on the mods that is in the biome. But anyway, we'll talk more about Delve. So the basic reward structure was changed with the removal of Exalt Printing Machine with the Fractured Fossils. And delving used to be all or nothing, where you either had to get to 6,000 plus to make bank, or it was just like, you know, a pastime. In the current iteration of Delve, it's worth it for fossils and resonators, especially on Trade League. They sell for a large amount. There's a lot of people just doing like speedrunners that aren't even doing walls. They're just looking for fossils and resonators, and they make a stupid amount of currency. I can't remember the last time I did it. I was making either like 800 or 1,600 chaos per hour. It was a very, very large amount. And obviously falls off the more people are doing it, but most people don't like doing it. So it's very, very profitable. There are hidden walls as well with rewards. Let's see. Is there a wall in this picture that we can point to? No, there's no wall here. Is there any other? No, we don't actually have an example of that. But that's okay. I actually want to log in and find a quick wall example, because I think it's so important to quickly explain. I'm gonna quickly explain that. Let's just go here. You forgot? It's all good, dude. I have one. It's just, I feel like walls is what most people struggle with. Right. Here is a hidden room. So generally, some will be easier to find than others. This one and this one is pretty hard to find. I'm going to see if I can find a super easy example first. That would be easier to explain with. This one is most likely here. There are very rarely twos, though. It could be somewhere else. Oh, actually, it's here. Because, yeah, this is actually a good example. So you can see, well, there's most likely, this is like a 2. And there are generally no 2 ways. And what I mean by that is this only has an exit here and an exit here. Like there is no exit down here. And that generally doesn't exist. It does. It is very rare, but I've seen 5 in all my time in Path of Exile. So that means that if we went to the smuggler stash here and went up, like north, there would be a wall that we could break and that would unlock here. Now, generally, areas will have 3, 4, or 1 exit and very rarely 2. So if you ever see something like that where it's like a 2, that generally means there's a hidden area here. Don't know if we have any others. This is most likely here, so it would be 4 because, again, very unlikely to be 2, very unlikely to be 2, very unlikely to be 2. So that leaves here as the most likely one. It could be here or here as well. So you gotta... Oh, and I don't think it can be here. I don't see how that would move through there. So you gotta, like, look through them like that. And then you'll find, like, a wall to break down. It'll show up on your map as well. And the Delve City current biomes still have sockets and link crafts for your bench. So at the start of the league, it's pretty worth to very, very early. What you want to do is you want to do the first one, which would be here. It's a Azurite cavity, and you want to do a second one. So you could, for example, have gone to that one. You want to do 2 of the one, and then you want to go and try to find a 2. So like this one, and then you have like the most basic important crafts. So that's good to open up with. And fossils are still very, very strong for crafting, and that is mostly because of their blocking ability. So there are some crafts that are almost guaranteed or guaranteed because it blocks everything else. Very, very strong. Hidden walls have the reward slightly increased, and it doesn't take you long to get a large amount of fossils if you're delving actively. And you gotta have dynamite, you gotta run into all like the holes or like caves. But you will start getting used to like, oh, I recognize this. This always has a wall in it. Like there's, it's not like procedurally generated, right? It doesn't look different each time. Like generally, you will recognize the patterns after a few hundred of hours of delving. And they're so good, especially because of the blocking. So best example is mini modifiers on a convoking one. Normally, I think the average of spamming, chaos spamming, a +1 minion, +1 spell. I think it's something like 300,000 chaos. It's a stupid high number, more than you'd ever want to do. Whereas if you use... Is it Shuddering, Corroded, Metallic, and Jagged, I believe? You'd have to check it up on like Path of Exile. But if you use that, then it is like a 1 in 18, which is a really, really, really good way to craft convoking ones. Sulfide veins are worth clicking as well, even if you have no intention of delving, because you can get the divination card that gives you 10 alterations. And you can never have enough ults. Delve is super worth doing. Next up, also really good for XP around level 83. Next up, we have Legion, and the primary reward is the unlock of your map device slots to have 5 slots. A lot of people ask me, Zizaran, why do you have 5 slots in your map device? And that is by doing a 4-way. So you need 4 different Legion emblems, doesn't matter which ones, and you need to just open that. I don't think you actually need to do anything in there. I thought at the start that you had to kill 1 of each, but that doesn't seem to be the case. I think you just need to open 1 and, you know, probably not die. Maybe you can die even. I haven't tried, actually. You should always prioritize that, though, over any other reward, and sometimes in a race, you might really need a timeless jewel, and then you'll do 3 ways, but generally, unlocking the 5-slot map device is very strong. Their timeless jewels are extremely strong as well. They're always worth going for, and the 4 and 5-way emblem fights are also densely packed with loot if you have a character with good DPS. 3 is the most efficient to farm for most people, because most people don't have good enough builds to properly handle 4-way or 5-way builds, or 5-way emblems. And reaching a high enough reward count and getting a nice loot explosion also just feels great. Legion specific uniques no longer drop from Legion. Whosever decision that was. That means that things like Tavukai, etc., you can't drop it in Legion anymore. Well, you can, but it drops everywhere. Like, it doesn't have a higher chance to drop from Legion because... I don't know. I hope they change that this patch, because that's terrible. So, Asanas, Gentle Touch, etc., you can't target farm that. Oh, and a quick tip, if you are doing a 3-way, 4-way, and a 5-way, and you don't have a lot of damage, sometimes you don't care about the rewards from the other bosses. Let's say that we have a red emblem, a green emblem and a white emblem. Maybe I only care about the reward from the red emblem, the Glorious Vanity. But I have pretty low damage. I maybe have high damage, but I don't have a lot of speed. And I definitely know that I cannot kill the bosses on cooldown. Once you kill the boss, it has a 20-second cooldown until it spawns again, or 28. I think it depends what tier as well. But either way, I'm not able to run around, kill, reset, and that the first one is still waiting, right? I would be wasting time. And if I don't want the rewards from the other bosses, what I would do is I would basically sacrifice all the other loot, and I would kill the red one and just reset until I see the boss spawning again, and then go back and kill it. And that's the way to get Glorious Vanity, for example. Now, monolith boss spawns are shown by a wave coming from the monolith itself. It's like a purple beam. Unless you know how to look for it, a lot of people are always surprised, but I say that. So if this wasn't here, like, we know that there is no boss on this side of the Legion, but we know that there is one. It's attracted to the boss and will show you that there is a boss there. So this is really, really nice, because sometimes people will like clear one side and then figure out that there's a boss on the other side, but there is actually an indicator telling you if there is a boss. So make sure you look out for that. That's something you could do now before the league starts. Just open a bunch of legions, and after like 4 or 5, you'll see that there's an indicator. Just it's important to try to look for it so that you know what it looks like. Like, it looks like that, but it can be hard to see. If you have fast enough clear speed, you can ignore looking for it. Like, for example, Val Ice Nova characters, ED, then you can just the entire thing, right? Boom, whatever. But if you are, let's say you're a Cyclone character, maybe you have low clear speed, but you want to kill the boss, look for that. Now, I would say that boxes are worth more than the bosses. The bosses drop 2 more splinters, but the boxes generally have better rewards. And they don't fight back. You just click them. So I generally would always prioritize the big boxes over bosses. I would still like bosses though. Incubators are stolen from Pokemon Go eggs, and instead of walking, you kill things. They're generally not worth buying, but if you find one, you should always like apply them. They're worth having. And there are some good ones like 6 things, etc. Ritual. Ritual is a really, really nice smoothing mechanic with an option of investing into massively increased rewards. It's incredibly worth if it doesn't get nerfed. Wouldn't be surprised if it does. But you can force it to be 5 ritual altars with the way it was in Ultimatum if it's not changed. We'll talk about that in a sec. But yeah, even at base levels, just by doing every ritual, they're super rewarding, and you'll get loads of good things here, and also special bases like Blizzard Crowns and Archdemon Crowns that are very, very strong. And don't forget that you can reroll rewards. And rerolling is almost always better than taking a bad reward. So this window is what I would call a bad reward. You might need silver coins, you might need scours. And this you could justify taking because you only have 3.4. I pretty much always reroll. If I have over 4,000 or 4,500 and it's just an okay reward, let's say that this had 2 or 3 or 5 chaos, I would reroll if I had 4.5k, because it's generally always worth it. I never take a filler reward. If it's not something where I go like, ooh, this is something I wanted, I will reroll. Because at the end of the day, 2 or 5 chaos, I'm probably going to have that on the reroll as well. Like, that's not an important part. I always reroll because it's almost always worth it. Sometimes, even with 4.5k, you will be fucked and see a really good reward that you can't get. But it's almost always worth rerolling with 4.5k. Again, unless it's something that is specifically worth taking. 5 or 10c, not so much. Depends on how bad the chaos inflation is that league. Taking the bait chaos orb is not the best idea if you have enough tribute to reroll. And generally, I found that most of the time I rerolled, I got an exalted orb. And in Ritual League, Ritual was, I think, my biggest record of exalts on Soul Alpha, and I think I got between 70 and 90. I had an extreme amount. Oh, actually, I might have had more in Legion. But I was Trade League there. Deferring extremely powerful. Sorry. Deferring is extremely powerful because it allows you to pay for an item in installments instead of needing to have the tribute to buy it. It is slightly more expensive because you will pay a penalty. But you are paying it off each time too. Good rewards include strong base types and any unique that you need, and the defer system allows you to do installments so you can have more than one item waiting for you for more tribute. Very, very good league. Okay, we are going to talk about everybody's favorite, Heist. Heist has two sides. It has contracts and grand heists via blueprints. Now, grand heists are amazing. I think most people really, really like these. And grand heists are just amazing. They're very fun to do. They're very rewarding. And you never feel like you're wasting your time. In Heist, the normal Heist, I feel like it's incredibly boring. I hate it, and I don't enjoy doing it. However, it is very worth doing. Contracts are a mandatory grind to level up your rogues and to get blueprint reveals so you can run the good part of the content, Grand Heist. And that's bad. That's I don't like that part. Grand Heist can have alternative quality gems, replica uniques, trinkets, and chants. Just so much good stuff from Grand Heist. It's incredibly good, and I really do like that you can't get this stuff anywhere else. I think it's very important that things have an identity. Grand Heist have very, very high return per instance. And the biggest downside to Grand Heist is that you need to do the normal contracts to run them. So here we can see Grand Heists. You can roll them. I would only ever roll Grand Heists. I never roll like the normal ones. You generally get one more chest. And the chests are... Maybe they're included in the quantity thing from Blight, but I don't think so. Either way, I would say I never roll normal contracts. A lot of the mods are incredibly dangerous, more so than maps. But Grand Heist can be worth, because then you can get maybe, if you roll it well, you can get 2 or 3 more chests. And you can see here loads of information. Here you see how many wings are revealed, what level is required, and on the contract, you can see what type of room it is. And there's specific rewards to the specific rooms. Every rogue has their own specific jobs and bonuses. So Gianna and Niles give blueprint reveals at a discount. So generally, I would only run contracts at a certain point that have use Gianna, so like deception ones. Deception ones also have no doors on the way out. The rest of the rogues do things that generally affect contracts more than blueprints, but should not be discounted. So Vendari has a chance to duplicate the content. So that's exceptionally good for currency tests and just generally anything. Talina and Nanette gives less raising of alert levels, so you'll be able to get 1 or 2 more chests. And there are trinkets that modify currency orb which drop, so Regal Orbs to Exalted Orbs at a low chance, but that'll add up over time, especially good for softcore trade league where Exalted Orbs are expensive. If you want to target farm things, craft the appropriate gear from rogues at the highest item level and tier possible. You can get plus level, you can get increased speed. Like, the gear is worth rolling, even though it is a massive pain in the ass. And yeah, we're not going to cover all of that. I do have a separate heist video. General contracts with Kiana is that you have no doors with deception, so that's like super good. That's generally why I just run that. Lockpicking is good because of currency chest. Demolition has cluster jewels and catalyst chests. Alternative quality gems and replica uniques do not need any trinkets or rogue gear to run and can quite readily produce things that sell for good currency. Like, there are some of the old quality gems that are super expensive. Now we're going to talk about Harvest, which has changed a lot throughout the game and might change again this league. So if it does, I'll be doing a follow-up about Harvest and the changes. But Harvest retains the crown as the strongest method of trying to get specific crafts. It's by far the strongest league mechanic in the game, even at this point. But the big downside to that and why people are asking for a buff is because it is so strong, it feels so garbage because it makes you hold. It makes you hold onto items because you feel stupid for not using Harvest. But maybe sometimes you're just not getting the Harvest stuff. So it's in a very weird spot where it is by far the strongest way of crafting. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of what they did with Harvest. And if I was going to change something, currently the fields, even though there are loads of seeds there, you can't like use all the seeds. I think that all the seeds that are there should turn into crafts. That would probably fix Harvest. So the most common ones that you will get is like Reforge X, with X modifier is more common. So for example, Reforge Lightning modifiers are more common. These are really, really strong when you're looking for just maybe one stat, or you're looking to get a damage weapon like percentage lightning damage on a 1. Physical one is obviously incredibly strong, and gotta remember the Reforge one can be used on influence items. So if you're spamming for, well, let's say an explosion chest or something like that, or elusive boots, then you can use the reforge on influenced items. The only thing you can't do, like the non-lightning to lightning or the augment lightning on influenced items. So it can be really, really strong for Chaos Crafter ones, the non-X add X, because there are only 4 different Chaos modes on item level 60. 64? 64 and 65. 64 and 65 has only 4 Chaos modes, so things like non-Chaos to Chaos is incredibly good. Reforge a rare item, much more likely to receive the same modifier, is insane. This is like you have the reforge more likely to roll lightning. These are, I think it's 10 times more likely to roll lightning modifiers, and you have another one that is reforge an item more likely to roll the same modifiers. What does this do? It will reroll the item with 90 times to the multiplier of that stat. So if it has, let's say, 75% physical damage on it, it will reforce the item. It's 90 times more likely that physical damage will be there at a different tier. So what is really, really good with this? Let's say that we have a axe with low percentage physical damage, low flat physical damage, low hybrid physical damage, and attack speed. Then doing the reforge item, more likely to receive the same modifier, has a surprisingly high chance of giving you a giga enormous axe. And this is how you see some people will make like 800 to 1200 DPS weapons. And harvest crafts still work with bench crafts, so you can force a modifier on an item to be eaten by that harvest craft, the reforge more likely. So say that you have all the modifiers I was talking about, except for the flat physical, you can use your crafting bench to put flat physical on there. Currency and fragment swapping crafts are extremely useful. Speaks for itself, like just swapping augments to chaos orbs, etc. Divination card gambling, really, really good. Obviously, everybody likes to gamble and lose their div cards. Painful sometimes. Very good for SSF. Blight. Blight encounters have at least 1 lane with at least 1 Blight reward. So Blight can be incredibly good just because of that reason in really shitty maps. Let's say that you are in Cells, right? That's a very, very shitty map. In very, very cramped up maps, Blight will sometimes just do 1 lane. And if it only has 1 lane with like, say like 5 or 6 or 7 rewards, I can't remember what the most you can get. Was it 11? They would all be Blight tests. So any map that's like cramped, ruins, toxic series, etc., can be really, really good for that. Whereas open maps, generally, you won't get like 6. Oils are used for anointing your gear. And remember that the harvest gear, like the boots, the gloves, the helmet, you can anoint that as well. And you can anoint your rings to make towers better. I have a video on how to... I think we have a very clickbaity title on it. It's called How to Never Fail a Blight Map Again. But it literally tells you how to never fail a Blight map again. It is actually impossible if you follow those strats. Because you don't even need to do damage yourself. Like the towers alone with that combination can carry the entire map. So it's very, very strong. Would recommend watching that. And anointing your rings is huge. And then you can anoint maps as well. You can anoint Blight maps, sorry, not normal maps. And all notables have a combination of 3 oils, and you can pick any notable from the passive tree, even some of the hidden ones, like Transcendence. I think it's called Transcendence. There's one like at the top of the tree that 2 gold oils, 1 silver, I think. Very strong. All build guides will list what anoints you want to have, ranging from like what is like cheap and you can do early to the ones that are stronger later. Blight lanes have a portal which spawns monsters, and they can be resistant to 1 type of tower. So some might be immune or resistant to minion towers. And generally the most effective tower is just minion towers and spamming them for tier 4 scout. And I generally have this with the upgrade tower. And that's like incredibly strong. Now do remember, if you aren't on the same screen, or sorry, within a screen and a half of your towers, they don't attack. I think it's part of their like optimization to try to like save performance. But the monsters keep moving and your towers won't attack. So make sure you're in range of your towers. That's why I'll try to build them close to the pump. And you can anoint amber. I actually disagree with Araki, who helped make these slides here. Amber and Amber is what he recommends for scout tower damage, but the range is actually better because they do attack slightly off screen. So Violet and Teal Oil for 50% scout tower range is insanely strong. If you have a lot of minion resist tower lanes, I would also put some chilling towers, and then you might have to attack slightly more yourself. Normally, I will put chilling towers down near wherever the minion immunes are. Blight maps can be rolled like normal maps and can also have oil supplied to them. I generally never roll the maps. And the scout tower damage is good as well. But yeah, I generally don't roll these, even after the upgrade, unless I'm in a very, very strong character where I know I'm not just relying on the towers. I try not to roll them too much. It does affect the chests now, so it is more worth it. And definitely rolling it blue is no problem. But if you're rolling it alked, something like Monster Life could make it very, very hard. 3 silver oils will give you 195% increased item quantity. I would never bother anointing with that much. I will generally I'd say Amber Anoint is like the easiest to make towers super cheap. And generally they're okay XP and will drop a shit ton of loot. They're not like the best XP efficiency in the game. Insanely good for loot. Essences, very, very strong, and they reforge an item, guaranteeing one modifier will be listed on the item from the essence itself. And this got basically buffed with the addition of the map passives, because we can find so high level essences now in Hayward Hamlet. I'm assuming that doesn't get changed. That means you can find Shriekings or a Remnant of Corruption to Deafenings. Really, really strong. And this can be forced on, like, for example, say like a Deafening Woe is like 110 spell damage or 90 spell damage. This could be forced onto a low level item that might not be able to get it. So it can bypass item level restrictions. Really, really good case for this is Deafening Essence of Greed. Can be used in like an item level 50 16 chest to get really high life on a chest that otherwise might not be able to roll it. And they can also force modifiers not normally available, like spell damage on a bow. Essences can also have modifier values which are equal or higher to the tier 1 rolls. So attributes roll 51 to 58 with an essence, whereas tier 1 is 51 to 55. Only essences can roll the tier 1 range value of dex and int on belts. Like, you can't naturally roll dex on a belt, so they're your only option for getting high attributes. You can still add lower values via your benchcraft. And unveiling. Essences can have unique modifiers that aren't acquirable by any other methods, like Delirium Gloves, Horror Helmet, Essence of Hysteria, and Essence of Hysteria was super meta this league. We don't know if it gets nerfed or not yet, but very, very strong. Essence of Insanity has some really, really good ones. And we have Shrieking and Deafening Essence of Dread for +2 level of bow gems. Very, very easy to make a +3 bow with this. Essences are also really good money in trade leagues, especially in hardcore, because they are used so much. So don't sleep on essences. Do we have any questions? My question is, why is it so warm? And again, big thank you to Rocky for making these slides and everything. This would be a lot worse without him. I am dying in the heat. I want to get out of this shirt. Is the PowerPoint available somewhere? No. But the video will be on YouTube. You're wearing a long sleeve? Yeah, I wanted to look professional. But either way, I hope you guys enjoyed watching, whether it's on YouTube or Twitch. Subscribe to the channel if you feel like what I do add value to your life. But yeah, more importantly,